Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about where you can get some really quick wins for growth inside your business. So come on, let's have a listen up and learn where you can go to help you grow. Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Hey there, welcome to episode 120 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices out there, and I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of them. If you're new to the podcast, then hey, I'm Jen, the host. If you have been and listened before, then hey, super welcome back to you. Really excited that you can join me. I am, of course, the host, Jen Donovan, thought leader, digital strategist, and coach for small businesses. And I have one goal for you, and that is for you to make marketing a priority in your business, because I know that if you want to grow, you need to learn to market yourself. It sounds simple, it's not always easy, but the so-named Small Business Made Simple podcast will help you for sure. Just before we head into this week's episode, I just want to quickly let you know that now you can sponsor this podcast. Yay! You can be a sponsor of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. So if you have a product or a service that you want to get in front of small businesses, about 1,000 small businesses every week, for less than you would pay for a radio or a TV, or definitely a TV ad or a newspaper ad, then this might be just for you. And what I love about sponsoring podcast episodes or two is that the content lives on forever. Like if you take a radio or a TV ad, once you stop paying, the ad disappears. And if you put an ad in a newspaper, it's kind of gone as soon as that day goes by, or a week if you live in the country like me and the newspaper only comes out weekly. But podcasts are a little bit different, and that's what I really like about them. I still have about 200 people every month download my very first episode. 200 people every single month. That podcast was done in January 2019, so that just gives you an idea of how long podcasts can live for. I'm sure that, other people have podcasts that are a lot older than mine, and people are still downloading their first podcast. Anyway, if you're interested and you want to know more, you can go to my website at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au, find the podcast tab at the top there and click sponsor a podcast. And you can read all about it there and reach out if it's something that you think you might like to do. But today's episode is all about another growth strategy that you can use. And we are actually going to talk about your social media insights and Google Analytics. Have I got your attention? Now, if you're on social media, you do have insights. And if you have a website, you should have Google Analytics set up. If you don't, go and get it set up today. Make it numero uno for doing today on the to-do list. I know that when we set up websites, often it's not part of the package that web developers give you. So it is something that you need to either set up yourself or ask them to set up. But it is such an important part of your entrepreneurial journey to be able to use these statistics, and that's what I'm talking about today. Some of the most common questions I get in my business from my people, from my audience are, well, who is my target market, Jen? Who am I actually attracting the right people? What platforms should I be on? And what do I post about? All these questions, absolutely all these questions can be answered with statistical, can't be argued with data. And that's the reason why I love digital marketing just so much. Like mathematics, for instance, there is almost always a definitive answer when you're doing maths. And with digital marketing, the numbers and the stats don't lie. They are there for yours for the taking, and they can really help you. In fact, I would say they are your secret weapon in business. So my question to you today is, are you using your secret weapon? You've got one. Are you actually using it? So why is it your secret weapon? Well, it's because it can tell you what you want to know. It can answer those 4 questions that we just went through, plus a lot of other questions as well. It can help you grow your business, show you where you might be able to be spending your marketing time, your marketing energy, and your money. And it can tell you what to post, what your audience wants to see more of from you. My guess is that most small businesses don't even look at this data. I hope that's not you, but if it is, take this episode as Jen giving you a slight nudge to start looking at it from today on, okay? How often should you look at your insights? I guess when I start talking about analytics and insights, that's a question that I get asked a lot. I would say fortnightly would be super, monthly at a minimum. You know, if you can't do it fortnightly, then at least have a look at it once a month. Recently, I had a client who had Google Analytics connected to his website. Now, his website is about 4 years old, but he'd never been in there. His web host sent him an email every month, I think, outlining the results of Google Analytics, but he didn't actually read those either. Now, this gentleman is a leadership coach, and he spent the majority of his marketing time, emailing his clients, writing blogs, and hanging out on LinkedIn. Occasionally, he'd hang out on Facebook, but most of the posts that went up on Facebook was just repurposing the content that he was putting on LinkedIn. LinkedIn was where his attention was. What Google Analytics told us when we got in there and had a look was most of his traffic was direct traffic, which is great. That means that email marketing is working. And Facebook. Yep, Facebook. His face. I could have just about picked his jaw up. He's like, what? How can Facebook be driving more leads to my website than LinkedIn? LinkedIn is where he was hanging out. And yet Facebook was the data we were looking at that was sending more traffic. And unless there's something wrong with your connection to your Google Analytics, this data is real. It just doesn't lie. Sometimes there might be glitches, given that it's not an exact science, but all in all, the data is quite real. So guess what our next lot of planning and marketing look like? Yep, a whole lot more of Facebook and a deep dive into the strategy of what emails he was actually sending, because they were the 2 things that were working. Now, we didn't stop doing LinkedIn marketing, like that would just be silly, but we did pay attention to the other bits. Marketing is all about test and measure. I'm sure you've heard me talk about that before. So given what we saw in his Google Analytics, something he'd never actually considered, it was time to start looking at different marketing activities and start measuring over the coming months because, test and measure. It wasn't about scrapping what he was doing already. It was about testing the other things and making good decisions with the data we now had. For me, during 2020, which probably looking back now wasn't the best years to be doing such testing and measuring, but I put in place a Pinterest strategy for my business and I paid someone to do my Pinterest. I've just got so many blogs and podcasts and freebies on my website. I wanted to see if I could drive some more traffic there via Pinterest. After 12 months, Pinterest is still the 4th in my social section of my Google Analytics. So if you go into Google Analytics, you can see the different traffic sources and one of them says social. And then when you click on that, you can see exactly what social platforms are sending the traffic there. So Pinterest was still my 4th one sending traffic to my website below Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So is paying someone to do my Pinterest getting me a return on my investment? Well, probably not, to be honest. But before I make any big decisions, I actually go and have a look at my Pinterest data too, because I don't want to just look at one data set. I need to look at all the data sets. So, of course, I went and had a look at my Pinterest data to see what was actually happening over on Pinterest. You can see that this is how you can start using data to make really good decisions. And what if you were spending 90% of your social media time on Instagram, but LinkedIn is what's driving the most traffic to your website? That might be a significant push for you to spend less time on Instagram, but you might look at your Instagram data then and go, well, no, hang on. I actually sell through my DMs on Instagram. The traffic doesn't actually need to go to my website to make the sale. So therefore, perhaps spending 90% of my time on Instagram is actually worth it. Either, you need to analyze the data to find all this out. We need to stop making assumptions in business when we have hard data that we can actually rely on. Last year, I did a marketing strategy with a client around hashtags on Instagram. They'd been posting on Instagram, but didn't really have a hashtag strategy around what they were posting. They didn't really understand how it all worked. So we worked through a strategy and put a hashtag plan in place, and we implemented it for 4 weeks. Looking at her insights 4 weeks later, we could see that an average of 32% of people who interacted with her posts over those 4 weeks didn't follow her. So 32% of people that are interacting with her didn't actually follow her. And 43% of those people found her content by simply using the right hashtags. So 43% of the 32%, keep up, sorry. So 43% of the 32% of people she would never have reached because she just wasn't using the right hashtags. So using the right hashtags for her business and that particular post was helping her grow her audience in ways that she hadn't considered before. This data came from checking her insights on her page, on her profile, and subsequently looking at the data on her individual posts as well. Your insights are really awesome. They can break your audience down into age and location and gender, and also give you most active times and days as well. So you can start looking at your strategy in, when's the best time for me to post? Well, have a look at your insights. It will tell you. So you might have a target audience or you might think you have a target audience of women who are 40 years old and live in Melbourne, but you might actually look at your data and actually see that you're actually attracting women aged 25 who live in Perth. So as a business consultant, we would then look at your messaging and your funnels and all of that to see if you need to change some of that, or whether the people you're attracting are the exact people you needed to. You had it wrong. Maybe you thought that you needed to attract 40-year-olds from Melbourne, but clearly you're making sales and your business is thriving, so 25-year-olds in Perth might actually be a really good target market for you. Your social insights can also tell you what posts have done really well and those that haven't done so well, and of course those that completely tanked. Therefore, helping you create more content around the information your audience actually wants to consume from you. It takes away that, what to post pain, because you've already got that data. You know what people love to see from you. I hope you're starting to see the power of data here by me using these examples and these ideas. Digital data is really, truly your secret weapon in business, and it's free and it's all yours for the taking. It's right there. It'll take away so much business pain and the busyness from you that once you start looking and analysing and seeing patterns in this data, you'll wonder how you ever live without all this knowledge. But if you're listening to this and thinking, you know what, Jen, numbers aren't my thing, I get bored just thinking about them, then don't think of them as numbers. Think of them as tools to help you make more sales. And of course, who doesn't want more sales in their business? Think of them as a way that can help you get smarter and more efficient at what you do, and therefore helping you grow your profit, your brand awareness, and of course, your audience. And that's got to make you do a little bit of a happy dance. So here's what I want you to do, because, I love action takers. The world needs more action takers, not people thinking of doing it one day, people. We just need more action takers. So here's a couple of steps I want you to do. Firstly, I want you to put in your diary a fortnightly and or monthly task or a reminder to look at your insights, to look at your insights on your socials and look at your insights or your Google Analytics as far as your website goes. Cross out about 30 to 60 minutes once a month, or maybe 30 minutes each fortnight in your diary. 2, take time to look at the data. Don't be afraid of it. Perhaps you thought you were doing all the right things, but the data is showing you that you weren't really reaching the people you thought you were. For instance, maybe you aren't reaching the target audience you think are your target audience, and maybe that's okay, because there is power in knowledge, so much power in knowing all of this. I want you to take some notes of these things you see and trends that you find and see, because I want you to start comparing them month in, month out. This data can't exist just by itself. You need to start looking at patterns. And I want you to make some subtle changes to your marketing from what you are finding inside your analytics. I want you to test and measure. I don't want you to make big sweeping changes, just small trackable ones, and see what brings in some really good results. Maybe it's maybe one of your subtle changes could be using like a link tree in your Instagram bio. So there's more than one link. There's more than one thing for people to see when they click the link inside your Instagram bio. Maybe it could be using less links in your Facebook marketing that you actually do. So trying to not always send traffic to your website, because we know that Facebook doesn't like that. Maybe it's every third time you are doing that, and therefore maybe you will get more algorithm sharing it more often. And so when there is a link, you will actually have more clicks. I don't know. This stuff is test and measure stuff, but these are the kind of subtle changes you can make to your marketing. Test and measure them and see next month or next fortnight when you are looking at your analytics or your insights. At the end of the day, we just want to use this data to bring in more people into our world, more buyers into our world, and also have those buyers buy from us with less touch points. So less time taking people from a cold audience to a buyer, because basically we want our content and our messaging and our methodology to be just that good, that we can shorten the buying cycle of a client. That sounds fabulous, doesn't it? Well, I think it sounds really fabulous. If you found this episode a little bit heavy, then just make me one promise, and that's that you'll start to look at the data. If you're nervous about what it will tell you or making changes from it, that's totally okay. I get it, and you will get there. I just want you to start looking at it. What does Zig Ziglar, the famous marketing guy, say? You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So if you've never looked at your insights or your Google Analytics, this is your really big nudge towards it. You might not know what to do with it, but over time you will absolutely learn and you'll be able to see patterns. That is my hope for you listening to this episode. But of course, that's it for episode 120. I hope that you'll come back for episode 121 next Thursday, and you have a fabulous week in between. If you're enjoying this podcast, then please hit the subscribe button and maybe share with another superstar business owner who would love to learn about Google Analytics and insights as well, to help them increase their profile, their people, and their profit. And of course, if you have time, you could leave a rating and a review. I would really, really, really appreciate that. But whatever you do, my small business peeps, remember, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.